Hi there. I'm just doing a poor man's response video. I saw some things in Subspace Rhapsody that I wanted to comment upon, but I don't have the technology to put it all together. And I've been thinking about it this entire weekend. I am a Trekkie, been one since '74. Picked up on Trek, and there were no movies around at that time. All we had was the comic books and the Gold Key comic books, and then the James Blish books, and then a few novels came out in '76 and '77. And we didn't have the wealth and amount of backstory. We didn't have the wealth and amount of character development. And yet, what happens is I saw some things in here that I wanted to comment upon. And it kind of puts all the elements together. I might fast forward a little bit. There was something that happened with Kirk, and I saw it way up here, and I wanted to go a little forward and comment on it, even though with the scene playing, was right after Spock has his, he kind of gets his head handed to him there. Here, La'an talks with him and starts telling him, as this comes out, her feelings and stuff. And it's interesting, though, this is the first time, and I started thinking it through. She starts talking about how Kirk made her feel, how Kirk brought her out, how Kirk, and it wasn't, and I got to thinking, at first, I spent a few days on the wokeification, oh, they're wokeifying our Star Trek heroes. All of a sudden, it's not loving Jim Kirk. It's not Jim Kirk that I love. It's I love how you make me feel. I mean, to tell you the truth, any guy could have jumped into that mix, or from there. I guess in the Trek universe, I always thought that, Kirk was loved for being Kirk. He's flamboyant, he's charming, he's strong, he's a leader of men and women. He is the captain of the Enterprise, the greatest starship in that universe at that time. And so she's not loving that Kirk, and she's only loving what she can get from this, that this gave her a boost up. And I spent a few days thinking about that, and it kind of bugged me. But then I talked it over with my son, and when we go back to again to where Spock is dealing with Chapel, and Chapel kind of hands him his head, in a sense of in this song she says, "I'm ready. If I have to leave you behind, I'm ready." I mean, that's a hard blow for him to be hit with. I mean, he'd just become a human, or more human in a sense, exploring his human side, because again in the episodes before, the connection with his mom, etc., and then maybe he saw with T'Pring's mom the horribleness. You notice also how in that episode, and I'm giving spoilers away like crazy. If you don't want spoilers on the entire second season and first, you better stop right now, because there's spoilers all over the place, because I'm connecting dots from different episodes and going back into TOS and all of these things, canon. But the idea that in that episode, maybe he saw the resiliency. Maybe he saw his dad in her. This whole rejection of the human personification, and how that was treated like a blight or a disease or a weakness or a disability. And of course, he reveals that I am now 100% human because of this thing that happened. Spoilers. Did all of that come to factor in the play, that now he lets down his guard, and of course, he gets his head handed to her by Chapel here. Now, if we go back, and we're going back to the cringe scene with Pike, and that one was really hard to see the first time it comes about. Here he is, he's on the bridge, he's doing his thing, he's being Pike, and then all of a sudden that song comes across. I'm going past this other song here to make my point. I'm not going to jump around like this a lot, but here he is. And again, I wanted to, my son straightened me out, I wanted to stop here and really push on the pedal of the wokeification. All of a sudden, the girl is the strong one, and he's down on his knees and all this kind of stuff. It's very, very hard to watch. Even the crew goes, no, we can't have this. And it's La'an that goes on and pushes the button that stops the whole thing. Now, if you haven't seen the episode, the idea is they're in a space area where music When deep feelings comes around, people break into song. I mean, it's the perfect medium to create. There he goes, to create this a musical. And I was watching something that Will Wheaton does, Ready Room, where he's talking with the girl that plays Lon, and how they've been wanting to do a Trek musical forever, just this super thing. And they've been talking about it, and finally it was able to come together. And it actually, I love the episode. And I love the series, and I still love TOS. I'm not here to throw shade, and in fact, like I said, I was tempted to throw some shades at a certain level of wokeification, rah, rah, rah. And then my son goes, no, it's more than that. It's deeper than that. And so I started listening to him, and I started noticing patterns. And if anything, there are certain patterns that are coming into play. And I think that actually they're strong patterns. There's more strong patterns here than we even think about. When I think about Kirk, she's not responding to Jim Kirk. The irony of that moment is when La'an meets with Kirk in the one where they go back in time, again, spoilers, is that she doesn't know who he is, but he also doesn't know who she is. Therefore, she was able to open up and be herself. I think she carries too much of this I'm akin to Noonien Soon. And I'm not slamming her for that, because a lot of us carry a lot of baggage over either who we're kin to, or who we were, or what we did in middle school or high school, or our failures, our weaknesses. We carry that across. And so for her to carry this, I mean, when she met Noonien Soon in this episode, he was a child, but he was a child among other children in that household. And probably there were cousins and stuff, and probably there were a lot of people named Noonien Soon who came up, some of them not directly tied genetically to him, some may be. And I'm not faulting her for this, because it's a very human trait to take this upon. What I really like about this, and where we show character growth, is where, number one, encourages her to step out. My point I'm trying to make is, Jim Kirk helped her step up and away from Noonien Soon. Now it's her job to stay there. Sometimes we'll fall in these patterns, and women will sometimes more than men. I don't want to sound sexist about that. We all kind of do. When I've had my Jim Kirks bring me up to another level of who I am, but then when I get down, I want to go find another Jim Kirk to bring me back up to that level. When I need to realize that the first Kirk in my life was good, he gave me what I needed. Now it's my turn to be Kirk. It's my turn to lift myself up. And I think that's where she's telling her to be bold enough to approach him. But now she's going to have to live her life building herself back up as her own Kirk. And then maybe at this new level, she'll find love and she'll find more purpose, meaning it's very possible, if I don't want to psychoanalyze her too much, I think she's a hero. And I think all of these are going to be heroes, or heroes. But we get to see their faults. We get to see their weaknesses. And it's really, that's a good thing about the Trek universe. I was thinking how Trek was different than Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, or Lost in Space, or some of these other science fiction shows, even Space, 1999, and Battlestar Galactica. Some of them were nice and cool, but kind of one-dimensional. At least in this area, you get to see some pain, I really loved when Kirk had to deal with the death of Edith Keeler. And there's a few other places. Where Spock had to deal with the loss in This Side of Paradise, when he had to deal with the loss. And if this stays true, he lost it twice. He had it once with Chapel, and then once again with the girl on the planet with Sandoval in This Side of Paradise. He says at the very end, "For once in my life, I was happy." Again, we get to see these second levels all through Trek, which I think is one of the reasons why many of us were so drawn to it. Not trying to analyze her too much, but that she didn't respond to Kirk. But then I got to thinking, Kirk had not become Kirk yet. He was still, one place I'm going to go with, in the Trek universe, there's a sense of, I don't like this as much because it's not canon, because we have these problems, and Kirk's not Kirk, but they're embryonic. They're on their way. And that's something that I forgot. And even the Kirk in the other universe had not gone through the stuff that the Kirk in this universe has. If he was already captain of the Enterprise at the time she was there, maybe Pike went on to something else in that universe, whatever, but that means there were some things in his life which he had not experienced. When I look at Kirk, what makes Kirk Kirk, there's a moment in Star Trek 2, and I saw this in '82 when I saw it, and it really opened up the door for me. Here he was, he sees Carol, and he doesn't go and give her a hug and a kiss, and I missed you, I loved you, oh, you're wonderful to me. First thing is, was that David? And then he sits down with a lot of despondency. Kirk says, I did what you asked, I stayed away. That tells volumes. Did Carol, of course, connect with Kirk, get pregnant, and decide, I'm going to take the child? And she even says that in Wrath of Khan, I didn't want him traipsing around the universe with his father. He didn't say with my husband, with his father. And so, and did that have an effect on Kirk? Did Kirk become more Kirk? I mean, is it possible that this backbone of the Star Trek universe was created because a woman wouldn't let a man see his son? I mean, you see this resiliency when I go back to The Naked Time, and he's talking about the Enterprise, and you won't let anyone into my life. Is that a response to not having romance in his life, but not having David in his life? I mean, there's something about, and I know this is with women, I'm not trying to sound sexist. In my mind, I see an episode to where Carol is in danger or something, she's pregnant, and in my mind, I see this Kirk and Spock and McCoy come to rescue her, and they're fighting, and McCoy delivers David, and maybe hands David to Kirk. And then Kirk goes, whoa. This didn't happen in canon. But did he? I mean, we saw in Search for Spock, he had a picture of David. He didn't have a picture of Carol, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on some of this. You guys can correct me. But was it, she won't let anyone in my life. Notice the anyone. And I'm just trying to say that we see that Kirk here with Lana was not the Kirk who had lost his son. Because he even says, I've got this girl, her name's Carol, and Carol's pregnant. And the way he says that also, pregnant. He's not happy. Oh, girl's pregnant, It's like, okay, I've got to deal with this issue. I've got to deal with this as I'm going along my life. And of course, now I got to deal with her, and she's going along with her life. And Carol is pregnant. So, again, he hasn't been changed by her saying, you can't see your son. Now, I don't want to lean too hard on that pedal. I'm saying that we see a lot of embryonic TOS here. Uhura, when we find out her backstory, if we want to accept that into canon, which I would say why not, the loss of her parents and the loss of her sister, does that play into? And then you see in the episode before this with Bulmer and Mariner, to where she finds out, how do I get to be this badass, have fun girl when I'm so stuck and studious? It's because things happen. In fact, in that episode, Mariner kind of changes her by getting her out of that room. I mean, she kind of affected the timeline. By going into that room and getting her out of that room, she was able to connect with the Helms girl. I forgot her name right now. I know her name, I just forgot it. And so what happens is, if Uhura had decided, you know what, I'm not the know-it-all. I'm going to put this out to Starfleet. I'm going to put this out to the whole. I'm going to put this out to the whole ship. Has anybody recognized this? Does this look like anything anybody recognizes? And so she could have shortcut her work and still got the answer. And of course, in that episode, the answer was, this is a time portal. They didn't even get any good quality information for all that hard work she was doing, really puzzling it out, trying to figure it out. And I think she learned in that moment. Bulmer, when he goes and tells Chapel about how he thought he changed Spock because Spock was laughing, and then kind of messes that up. I want to throw in a concept, because we hear this a lot in Trek, the butterfly effect. Oh, we better be careful, you step on a butterfly and you cause World War XIV or whatever, What about the concept of the resilient universe? The idea that Bulmer didn't change the Spock-Chapel relationship because Corby was on his way. I remember when I first saw this, and she's playing the little, she's having to play the like the old fashioned telephone operator, connecting people. And Christine Chapel asked for, I heard she had a call she was expecting, and when I saw her hand reach over and I read Corby, I was like, okay, here we go. And so you see where that goes with this. But where I'm trying to talk about, I'm going to pause this for a second. Just so again, and we'll play some more. The idea is that that was already in play when Bowman was there. And when Mariner was there, would they have figured it out? Or would it have been redundant if they never figured out it was a time portal? The idea of him getting that piece of material from the NX-1 out of the Enterprise and using it to open the portal, all this kind of stuff. The resilient universe, that these heroes will become these heroes based upon who they already are. I believe that Kirk does lean heavily on his pain. I believe Spock also, he gets his head handed to him, like I said. But Spock needed this teenage boy moment. He really did. He was really kind of a conflicted character before this teenage boy. All of us teenage boys, and then some of the girls. I'm not trying to sound sexist. But usually that first love hands you your head. You pour into it. This is the love. I'm excited about her. She's excited about me. And then she's off with somebody else. And you're just destroyed. It's that wrecking ball moment. I was talking about this with my son, and he really helped me see some really clarity here. We all have these wrecking ball moments. When Pike, he's not the Pike of the menagerie yet. He hasn't gone, I think it was Rigel 7, where he meets the giant, and he has some people get killed. And so this changed him. He was ready to leave the Enterprise. He was talking with Boyce, remember? He was having a lot of self-doubts about what he was doing, his effectiveness, and then he had to go on and deal with Talos 4. I'm forgetting some of this stuff. So if I'm a little wrong on this, the numbers, SETI Omicron 3, I do have this Kirk thing going, getting older. But the idea is he hasn't experienced any of that yet. And so he was not the Pike of the menagerie. The Pike that was sitting in the chair who had been all burned by the baffle plates rupturing was a different Pike than the Pike who went in charging with Vina and dealing with the Thelosians. And he was a different Pike than the one who had not gone to Rigel 7 yet. And so we see this Pike did and does this woman, and I noticed she's in Hamagogi. And I watched a little bit of that. I didn't finish it, so I don't know if she lives or dies. So I didn't do my homework all the way. I'll let that one slide. But that relationship probably is not going to survive, and he'll have his wrecking ball moment. Kirk had his wrecking ball moment with, I don't want this boy to be a part of your life. I don't want it to. So, again, but one thing I think I see in common of all of these characters, and I can do this with Uhura, she has this brokenness. If I were to analyze Christine Chapel, she's not a villain here. There's something about Christine Chapel that she wants these quiet boys, these quiet types. Maybe she was hurt by a lot of bad boys. Maybe she had a lot of pain in dealing with different types. She's attracted to the more stoic. And here's Corby, of course. If he's wrapped up in computers, I went and rewatched What Little Girls Are Made Of. He's wrapped up in computers so much that he becomes a computer. And, of course, he dies in the end. He phases himself. But the idea is that, and if you have to stop somewhere. You start analyzing, well, why did Corby become Corby? What was it that he saw against humanity that made him want to either embrace more humanity, and wound up destroying himself? If you think about it, Corby and Khan have a lot in common. There's that struggle with humanity, and then I have this power to make humanity better, or I will turn it and I will destroy humanity to rebuild it in my image, of course, this God complex. But he has this stoicism, and she's attracted to that, and of course they get this relationship going. We're going to know in the future, and of course she becomes she obviously must get through her education and goes back to the Enterprise, but she has a fiance, and then we see where it picks up with Where Little Girls Are Made Of, What Little Girls Are Made Of. And to understand this, that she has this deep need, and so she's looking for this quiet boy. You know, there's something stoic and about the distance that draws her. And I'm going to use that. She's not evil for wanting that. You know, we all kind of did that in our first loves and the ones we gave them to. We did it for emotional and not just hormonal reasons. There was something that that person had that we needed, and it wasn't just the physicality or, you know, you get to swing the hands and, oh, look, I have a girlfriend, you know. It might be part of that. But there's also an internal need there. And when they leave, what I'm seeing is all of these three are embryonic. In fact, they're all embryonic right now, and all of them get hit by. She gets hit by a wrecking ball, and they all get hit by a wrecking ball somewhere in their lives. The point I was trying to make with my son, and we were discussing this concept of wrecking ball. The idea is that when the wrecking ball comes, that you get hit by the wrecking ball, you weld yourself back together. Then here comes another wrecking ball. Yeah, it's going to slam into you, break you into pieces. You weld yourself back together. Nobody else does. If I'm using the menagerie as a template here, in a sense, everybody is at the Losian but you. You don't know what, you know, you can't look at somebody else and say, make me. They're going, I don't see you. I don't understand. I don't know how you're put together. Only you can make you. Only you can be the Thalosian for yourself. My wife can't do it. My teachers can't do it. And I did that for many years. You know, when I got hit by the wrecking ball, and I'd lay there like a broken toy. Why doesn't somebody fix me? And then I would try to fix myself, and then I'd get hit by a wrecking ball, go back to dust or something. Well, I didn't fix myself strong enough. I didn't weld myself back together because I didn't have a sense of who I was. See, she's getting a good sense of who she is. And now she can take this wrecking ball moment and build from there. He's going to face the wrecking ball moment. You know, I think he is going to have it. We know he has strong feelings for David. Looking at the picture in Star Trek 3, the angst he goes through. You Klingon bastard, you killed my son. I mean, I just think that that's going to carry with him, you know, that wrecking ball moment. I finally got him back. And the universe, my wife, everybody, even the Enterprise, kept him away from me. I just got him back, and you killed my son. I mean, you know, the fact that when we get hit, you have to weld yourself back together. There is no one. And I think that using the menagerie ideologue once again is that you have to look up and find out who you are and then put yourself together and then start building your universe. Now when I talk about Trek here, this is embryonic. This is like Act 1. And we see each one of these characters, including Pike, goes through the 3 acts in their life. You've got the embryonics who are still kind of becoming, kind of floundering around. They're not really themselves. Then you've got the more action figures, you know, the action people that are in the universe that we know, the menagerie, the TOS, and if you want to take those through the movies, and in some of the books, and even some of the comic books can tie with canon real well. Then you had, of course, at the very end, and here's the payoff. I'm seeing these patterns of consistency between them because they chose resiliency. In my life, I chose despondency. I chose to lay in the corner, somebody please fix me. Well, guess what? Nobody comes to fix you. You might as well grab some resilience. You might as well try to put yourself back together again. And when the wrecking balls of life hit you, either it's from your wife or from your job or from your kids or from, you know, just bad things happening to you, even from your health, you've got to keep putting yourself back together. And maybe I put myself back together wrong. I'm not wrong. So I'll put myself back together better. And one day the goal, and we see this with all these characters, all of them, even her, is that one day the wrecking balls come and they bounce off. See, that's what Mariner was talking about. When Mariner was talking about this unflappable, badass woman that does these things, you know, that she helps steal the Enterprise, you know. She is important to the crew. And I'm going to spread a little bit out here and talk about some of these characters that in this middle part. We see Christine Chapel. There's a guy who pointed out at the end of Star Trek 4, when they're all coming in at the very end for judgment, there's a scene where all of the characters of Star Trek TOS are there for the first time, all of them together. We do know Rand left right after Conscience of a King. And then after TOS, you kind of Chapel got a little lost. She was here and there. She was in motion picture. I'm not sure exactly where she was in Con and in the Search for Spock. But we see them all there, and she's there. Now, they just don't let anybody into these things. This is a tribunal of the highest level. And yet here is Chapel sitting there. She had to measure it up to us. It isn't just, well, I know these people, give me a chair. No, you have to earn your spot. And we saw where they used the Rand character in the motion picture, and then used her again in the other motion pictures. I think she was in Discovery, Undiscovered Country, and there she is, and she's this lieutenant, or she's this this officer. She really made her way up, and now in that one shot, they're all there, and they're all there because they earned the right, because of resiliency, that they all got to the place to where the wrecking ball came and bounced off. That's what you're going to see with Uhura. And I kind of like, she's embryonic here. From here on through the movie, she really grows. I think she never saw herself as really an important part of anything. And yet here she is. He calls her the voice of the Enterprise. Oh my gosh, isn't that a wonderful thing to happen for her? And then she gets to, Uhura, you've saved us. And she did. This whole thing, they fell into it by accident, by putting music out. And then she was able to find the way out and lead the way out. She led the way out from here. She's the hero of this story. And I think that really grows this character who didn't know I can be a hero. That's resiliency. When I put myself back together and I think to myself, I can be the hero. I don't have to be the broken doll sitting in the corner. I can be the hero. And one place I want to go at the very end is the final act. Now, we saw the final act where they really go for Kirk, Spock, and for Pike. We don't know really what happens with Uhura and with Bones and Scott and Chekhov and I'm sure all of these also would earn their places. I mean, there is an allusion to one of Chekhov's descendants being high up because he's mentioned in this universe. Or actually, no, that would have been pre. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. But my point is, the resiliency is the key. It's not what happens to you. It's whether you choose despondency or resiliency. And there are places here throughout this embryonic world where each one of these could have chose despondency. Pike could have chose despondency. I'm going to be facing this baffle plate, and I'm going to go into this thing, and it's going to be horrible. But the loyalty he creates along the way is what really saves him. The loyalty with Spock, and Spock going and risking his life to take him from where he was and take him to Vina on Talos 4. But here's where I'm going with this at the end game, especially with Pike and with Spock and with Kirk. We know their end games. And it's interesting because their end games are very similar. Because they're resilient, because they let things bounce off of them, they had the chance to choose their universe. They didn't have, if you're despondent, if you let the world hit you and drive you down, it will choose your universe. But Kirk and Pike and Spock got to choose their universes. He didn't want Talos 4, but he didn't want Talos 4 because he didn't want it because it wasn't real. It wasn't his universe. It didn't matter if Tango was there. It didn't matter if you had all the pastorals. It didn't matter if hypersexuality with Orion slave girls was there. It didn't matter that he could do anything. It didn't matter the fear of hell was there. It's not my universe. And he was fighting out in the menagerie for that one concept. I think that's why Roddenberry called it the cage, because it wasn't his universe. And then what happens is, taking it full circle, he's got a universe where he's in this, it might be in a little despondency. You're trapped in this body. You're going to die in it. And yet here you get a chance to now be in your universe. It wasn't just Vina. It's this is a universe that now I choose. And that's the power of the human spirit is I can choose my universe, but you can't do it if you're despondent. You can't do it if you don't put yourself together correctly. You can't do it with somebody else's template. Oh, Telosians make me. Oh, somebody else make me. No, you have to build yourself up and you have to become strong. Boy, she's becoming strong right now. So picking up that thought that, here is again, Pike has a chance. He went from invalid to being able to pick his own universe. And that's the important thing, again, of what I'm saying. It's the resiliency. It's not just humanity. It's not just, the future will come, the resilient universe, that you cannot change what will become in this universe. Now, I'm not trying to talk about that. We do have a little bit of a sense that we kind of make our universes based upon strengths and the things that we do now, how we build ourselves up now, the visions and hopes that we have now, or if you give in to despondency, and there's a whole bunch of horrible universes, that we can deal with if that's the way you want to go. But who gets to choose? Will you let the wrecking ball decide you, or will you put yourself back together? The goal of all of these characters is one day each one of them will get hit by the wrecking ball. And yet, when they go up, pretty soon the wrecking ball bounces off. And that's that moment. That's that middle, that second act TOS when we see the unflappables. I was making a point to my son is that I see all of these people living in a universe of their choosing. Scott is down in engineering, doing his universe and controlling those barns, that he calls them. That's his universe. She's controlling. She's the voice of the Enterprise. She's controlling the information running around. You got McCoy and Chapel together, controlling that universe, and I love it where McCoy goes, I think I can fix her any day. The idea of, he controls his universe. And of course, Kirk and Spock has his own logical universe where the problem solvings and how he does and focuses and his own things going on. We see this. And at the end game, I'm talking about the payoff, is here we have the payoff with Pike that he got through loyalty to go and spend time, not just with Vina, but in a universe of his choosing. And that's a wonderful place to go. We had Spock, he goes into the Kelvin universe and gets to meet himself. And, he's so important. Like I mentioned already, I think, that even the Vulcan High Command there, his life resonates even up to the top of Vulcan there. And, of course, Kirk. Kirk goes off into the Nexus. I forget exactly how. I think I saw that movie only once. I didn't care for the whole God thing. Why does God need a starship kind of thing? But okay, it's in the universe, and it reveals things about the character. I did like the row your boat at the very end. That is also very poignant, this universe that the three of them have created together. But he's in the Nexus, and in the Nexus you can create your own little universe. Well, he didn't have the Enterprise. He didn't have Starfleet Command. He didn't have his glory days as a cadet chasing chicks all the way out. Where was he? He was in a cabin with a horse, with horses. And I had to know he had a dog. Why would Kirk be in a cabin without a dog? You'll notice there's no women there. Maybe he's gotten past that point in his life. There's that solitude, that calmness. My son and I were talking about, imagine being in a cabin, just you and your dog, sipping coffee in the morning or watching the sun go down. Oh, nice. And that's where Kirk wound up, in a universe of his choosing. And you're in that universe, and then this guy comes along who's bald-headed and tells you, we're going to go, and we got to do this big thing, and we might not survive, and you go, sounds like fun. You still have this. And even though Kirk died with the bridge, and I know we all banter back and forth about how that could have done better, even in the Trek universe, some of them were like, it could have been stronger choices. But he dies, as in his universe, he dies with this new friend at his side. He doesn't die alone. And I don't know if Spock dies alone. I don't know where he is in that universe. I like to think he's surrounded by other Vulcans and stuff. You get the idea that maybe Pike didn't die alone. He's surrounded by whatever, imaginary friends, but okay. That kind of thing going. But you've got this guy who comes along and takes you into his universe. Or he enters your universe. And I like what Bill Shatner said. He had that last scene where he was thinking about how do I deliver this last line. And he didn't just want to go, oh boy, I'm dying. He actually willfully thought of the fact that how would Kirk respond to this moment? And this is stepping into, the final frontier, which was life beyond life. Oh my, or oh boy, or I forget exactly what the line was, but I remember seeing an interview with William Shatner talking about that moment. That moment wasn't by accident. He understood the poignancy of what that moment would mean in an encapsulation of who Kirk was from beginning to end. So where am I doing with all of this, and why am I doing this? And no, we're probably not going to get to finish watching the whole thing here. That wasn't the point. The point was to get us thinking about resiliency and despondency, getting us to see, to pull back and see the strength of this embryonic universe, and believing in not the butterfly effect of destruction, but of the resilient universe that will become. And I think even the universe telling Pike that, well, you don't have to make this sacrifice. We'll just kill Spock. And he's like, nah, I'm good. And I think that sometimes, I can say this, that sometimes the universe gives me a glimpse of where I can be and what I can do. But it's more about what kind of man will I be, person will I be when I get there, And so, in this encapsulation, as I'm finishing this off, I did want to say that let's all embrace this. Let's lighten up a little bit on canon. Those of us that are older, I'm 62, a lot of the older Trekkies, and we saw it back in the embryonic days. We saw it back on TV or in reruns. We saw it in the 70s, 80s. We watched it grow, to this. And yet what happens is, we sometimes get so wrapped up in the canon. If my kids and grandkids can love this like I love it, that's my legacy. And okay, there may be quirks along the way. I've listened to, people talk about, well, the eugenics war didn't happen at the right time, or this person didn't do this, or you had this happening here. That's okay. All right, let's give a little wiggle room. But if they can love it as much as I love it, if they can need it as much as I need it, if they can take from it what I take from it, then I think that's the legacy of Star Trek. It isn't getting all the bells and whistles right and making sure that everything follows a certain programmed specification, but that it's loved. And if it's loved, that's our legacy as Trekkies, Trekkers, what do you want to call yourself, is that we pass on that love to the next generation. So let's do that. This is a wonderful show. No, we're not going to watch this, but let's pass on that love, and let's become resilient. When the wrecking ball comes, let it bounce off. Weld yourself together so the wrecking balls bounce off. That's what I take from Trek, and that's how I can beat Kirk. Just something to think about. Thank you.